Welcome to Module 3, Conceptual Model to Fabrication, and this is Exercise 1, where we will be preparing the base model from Revit to send over to Makerware so we can start fabricating our current design process to 3D printing. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand what current FDM, or Fused Deposition Modeling, printers can and cannot do, and we'll also work on hiding geometry to make an effective physical model. At this point in the process, we've taken a pretty massive step forward in the overall design. We've gone from building massing forms to sort of deciding on the final massing form, and we've begun to really sort of flesh out the overall design. Currently, this is still what I would say is in the early phases of schematic design, but this is also the perfect time to begin fabricating an overall physical model so that we can use it as part of the design process, both in terms of self-critique and critical thinking on the design, as well as communication with the client and the project stakeholders. So there are always different strategies for different designs, but one of the key things that we've learned over the last few years in working with fabrication from Revit is a strategy where we're going to print a base floor and the enclosure with some of the interior elements. And this strategy works for most designs, and it also works for multi-level designs where we're printing out a floor at a time and then stacking those models up. The process is fairly quick and straightforward, and it gets us really nice results for the overall building design. So let's begin looking in Module 3 about how this can come together. So one of the first things that we need to address is what a 3D printer can't do. So this set of exercises is primarily looking at FDM extrusion printing, which are different than some of the more higher-end printers, but are very, very capable machines. So FDM printing, fused deposition model printing, uses a stacking method with the plastic. And so there are certain things that we can't really do. First of all, when we're working with a roof or something like that, the span is going to be too great. So we'll have a lot of draping, things like that. So we need to begin hiding things. So the process of starting that is first to duplicate the view. Once we have that view duplicated, we can begin manipulating that view to get us exactly what we want. So duplicating the view, I give it a ZZ prefix, hide the site because the 3D printer that I have isn't that big. And then we're going to begin manipulating this as our mode of output for our prototyped 3D printed model. As mentioned, one of the first things that we do need to eliminate is going to be the roof. So we'll begin by going in and highlighting some of those elements and hiding them in this specific view. So this view is always going to be our mode of exporting to Makerware for 3D printing. So I'm simply right-clicking, selecting the object, right-clicking, and using Hide in View element. Next, I've got the structural supports on the inside. We'll select all of those and hide them. Now the next part of the enclosure that we need to begin hiding is going to be the windows and curtain wall systems. At our current scale, a window frame, in particular the mullion, is about 2.5 inches by 5 inches. And if we think about that at a 16th inch scale, that's going to be a mullion that is less than a 64th of an inch in size, which is already pushing the boundaries of what a 3D printer can do. But in particular, if we try and print those vertically, we have a lot of spanning, a lot of draping, and a lot of potential problems that are going to occur. So we're going to look at two different techniques later in Module 4 that are going to help us out with that. So again, with our overall curtain walls, we're simply going to hide them. And there's quite a few in this project that we can hide, that we need to hide specifically. So we'll move through them here really quickly. And again, at times it's a little bit tricky to select exactly what you want, but Revit has a great workaround for that, and that's the tab key. It's one of those elements to definitely get in the habit of using to select exactly what you want. So if you're having trouble with your selection, simply put your mouse, your cursor in one location, and click the tab key, and it's going to cycle through all of the possible selections at that location. Once you have what you want, in terms of your highlighted selection, left click to select the object, and then again I'm using a right click to hide in view. Another situation that you're going to see with extrusion printing, FDM extrusion printing, is materiality. So typically in an architectural model, I might be using a lighter color, either a gray or a white plastic, PLA plastic, to print with. So any element like glass is going to print out also with white plastic. Now in the future, as printers get more advanced, that's certainly going to change. But for right now, what I want to express is simply whatever is glass is going to be an opening. So I also want to make sure that all of my glass elements are going to be hidden as well. So a few more of these curtain wall systems to do. And again, you can tell in my modeling that I like using the curtain wall tool quite a bit, probably overuse it to a certain extent. But the reason why I do like it is it gives you a lot of control in terms of placing mullions, being flexible throughout the design, being able to work directly on the model in space and maneuver things around in a really kind of nice way. So I probably overuse them. It's a little bit of a crutch that I have, but for right now, I'm probably not going to change my modeling practice too much on that. Also, as you'll see later on, the curtain wall systems, the windows that are built, are really flexible and easy to change around to get the desired results with 3D printing. So it's sort of another feature of why I typically fall back on using the curtain wall system inside of Revit. Last few elements to hide. Now, one other thing to point out while I'm wrapping this up is one of the temptations would be to hide the entire category of curtain walls, but they are actually wall systems, so it's going to hide all of the walls on the inside. So that doesn't quite work. We also, the handrails, the guardrails, way too delicate, way too refined in terms of a 16th inch scale, so we'll have to find a way to model those later. That's going to be coming up in the last module. And one more glance over, you usually miss one or two things. Forgot those doors right there. And that should have us a really good enclosure model that's about ready to start printing. Oh, last thing. Let's hide the interior doors as well. They'll print just fine, typically, but one of the things that I like to express in the model is how you flow and move around the interior spaces. So rather than leaving the doors as a solid portion of the print, I like to go ahead and hide those and simply express those in the physical model as openings so that I can discuss how you move around the interior spaces in an easier way with a client that might not be as familiar with architectural work. So this is about together. The next thing that we'll need to do is begin looking at the different families and make printable versions, 3D printable versions of those families. We can also look at some specific things along the interior, how they work, how we can begin to build them. And it'll be a much better process to actually modify some of those families rather than simply hiding them, because it's going to give us a sense of scale and a sense of understanding of how to organize the space in the physical model. So in this exercise, we were able to gain an understanding of the limitations of FDM extrusion printing, and we were able to modify Revit geometry for a successful 3D printing process.